I suggest we'll start. So, hello everybody. My name is Daniel Lieberman. I'm the director in charge of supply chain 4.0 at the Luxembourg Ministry of the Economy, and I will be today your moderator for the webinar on overcoming supply chain challenges of the COVID-19 vaccine. Before going further, let me first thank the Luxembourg Trade Investment Office Abu Dhabi, as well as the Benelux Business Council, who helped us to organize these webinars. Some practical information for the webinar. First of all, I would like to ask all the attendees to put their microphones on mute. Further, there will be the possibility to ask Q&A at the end of the session, and I will ask the attendees to send me their questions if they want per chat. And before giving the floor to our experts, I would like to give first the floor to Her Excellency Elisabeth Cardozo, Ambassador of Luxembourg to United Arab Emirates, that will give us a couple of introductory words. Madame Cardozo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lieberman, and welcome to you all to this webinar. I'm very happy to be able to address you. We're talking about vaccines and logistics today in Luxembourg, and many people don't know that Luxembourg is a recognized intercontinental and multimodal logistics hub in Europe. We have a central location in Europe, and it's perfect for being a logistical hub. Despite being a small country, Luxembourg Airport is among the 10 largest air cargo hubs in Europe. And yet there are fast transit times to and from the aircraft and no waiting time on the airport tarmac. Cargolux, which is Europe's largest all-cargo carrier, in the first cargo airline and the first airport handling agent in the world to become fully GDP certified. For the past decade, Luxembourg has focused on value-added logistics, and today we count more than 700 companies in that sector. Our strategy in logistics is to implement a multi-product specialization strategy within our logistics sector, and we focus on certain types of products that require specific handling and or storage solutions. So one of those focus areas, which is the one that we will discuss today, are pharmaceutical products. And I want to mention here only that we have created a specialized handling center for healthcare and pharmaceutical products at Luxembourg Airport, and that we have an air freight gateway that is fully certified according to WHO and EU GDP guidelines. We believe that Emirates Cargo has followed a very similar approach in the sector of pharma logistics, and this could provide an opportunity for further collaboration between Luxembourg and the UAE logistics hubs. Luxembourg and the UAE are already cooperating successfully in a number of areas related to logistics in general. For example, the company RAK Porcelain from Ras Al Khaimah has established its European headquarters and distribution center in Luxembourg. Also, the first air services agreement between Luxembourg and the United Arab Emirates was signed in 1986. And let me please mention also 3 Luxembourg companies that are active in the UAE in the logistics sector. 3 companies are Wallenborn, which is a road feeder services company, Geolog, project management in the industrial and logistics facilities, and Cargolux, who are specialized in air freight services. Cargolux, by the way, has signed a partnership with Emirates Cargo in 2017, and they cooperate on several elements, including the leasing of aircraft, the operation of co-chair flights by the 2 airlines, as well as space block agreements. So today's webinar will tackle the subject of overcoming supply chain challenges linked to the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine specifically. It will highlight the efforts undertaken both by the actors at Luxembourg Airport on one side and by Emirates Airlines on the other side to ensure a safe and secure supply chain of the vaccine. In addition, you will also hear B Medical Systems, a Luxembourg-based manufacturer and global distributor of medical refrigeration devices, who will share their insights about how their solution contributes to ensure an unbroken cold chain throughout the vaccine distribution. So enough from my side. I'm looking forward to hearing our panelists discuss, and I hope you find this webinar useful and interesting. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madame Cardozo, for the introductory words. Let me give now the floor to our first speaker, Dirk Schmidt, cargo community manager at Lux Airport. Dirk Schmidt is in the aviation since 20 years. He's an aviation logistic professional who has served in management roles for airlines and airports. He's in current role as cargo community managers at Luxembourg Airport. Dirk is supporting the coordination and collaboration of the air cargo community at Luxembourg Airport. This also includes the organization of the task force of the Luxembourg Air Cargo Committee that works on the topic of COVID-19 vaccine logistics. The airport of Luxembourg is a regional gateway for passenger traffic and a global hub for cargo operations. Before the COVID-19 crisis, more than 4 million passengers and 900,000 tons of cargo passed through Luxembourg. Currently, the cargo business is booming thanks to the high demand for international air transport of cargo on freight aircraft. In this context, Luxembourg expects another very busy year on the cargo side for 2021. Dirk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel, for the kind introduction. Also, thank you to the organizers for setting up this interesting webinar and also inviting me to speak on behalf of the air cargo community of Luxembourg Airport. To everybody, a warm welcome wherever in the world you might be able to see this webinar. This is one of the benefits that we now have of the last 12 or 14 months we have been going through, that we can connect rather easily. Hopefully, we will soon also connect in person again when air transport will resume once the crisis is behind us. I would like to present how the air cargo community at Luxembourg Airport organized for the COVID-19 vaccine logistics. And Nadia, if we could go back one slide, please. I would like to draw your attention while I give you some context information, since I don't expect everybody to be an expert in air cargo and air cargo transport. You can still enjoy the picture of Luxembourg Airport on your screen. To the left, you see our runway. And to the right, you see in the foreground the cargo center, and in the background the passenger terminal. And even at the very horizon, you see some skyscrapers of downtown Luxembourg. Having said, I would like to just bring you up to speed in a few sentences in regard to air cargo logistics, because that would also set the frame on how this collaboration developed in Luxembourg for this specific topic. Air cargo is a fast and reliable, safe and secure mode of transport. It's no surprise that only 1% of the volume of the global transport per year is transported by air, but that the value makes up almost 35%. So if something is small, needs to be transported fast, reliable and safe, and is of high value, the choice of mode is probably air cargo. That would also certainly will be the case for vaccines. The traditional air cargo logistics setup is teamwork all along. All along what we call the air cargo supply chain, many actors are involved. There are several handovers of the cargo and the information between what is in the beginning the shipper and at the end the consignee. You have freight forwarders organizing the chain. You have carriers like Emirates and Cargolux transporting by air. You have service providers transporting on the ground and also handling the cargo at airports. You have airports providing infrastructure services. And you have the authorities that also play a role in the whole logistical supply chain. I would leave you, before I go to the next slide, with one picture that I think describes the air cargo logistics chain all together. Just think about the Olympic Games and the athletics. Air cargo logistics is more like a relay race where every runner hands over the baton to the next one. And only if you have fast runners and also hand over the cargo, you have a chance of finishing the race and also winning it. So leaving you with this picture, I would like to go to the next slide, and we are already there. No, one step back, please, Nadia. Yes, I would start to give some more context specific to Luxembourg Airport. We already heard some very interesting facts about Luxembourg Airport. Luxembourg is a European platform for global air cargo logistics, combined with the local gateway for passenger traffic serving the greater region. It is ranked in regard to cargo tonnage in the top 10 of the European airports. And we're talking about the major gateways like Frankfurt, London Heathrow, Charles de Gaulle. So Luxembourg has been in there for many, many years due to the fact that location is favorable, that the access to the hinterland is given through the road access, we have dedicated full freighter infrastructure on the airport, and on the schematic map that you see on your screen, the red buildings on the right-hand side, this is the cargo center, and I don't know if you can see, there are also small freighter aircraft being parked in front of this building. We have these short distances between aircraft and trucks because this is a purpose-built infrastructure. We have best-in-class turnaround times for the freighters. This is specifically relevant for the carriers, as the aircraft earns money while flying and not while being standing or parked on the ground. And this is provided by the service provider Luxair Cargo at Luxembourg. One thing that is very particular, and you heard it before, is that since 2014, several members and major stakeholders of the air cargo community are certified according to the good distribution practice standards of the WHO, the World Health Organization, and its supranational counterparts. What does GDP for pharmaceuticals mean? It means that you fulfill the requirements for pharmaceutical handling or logistics. What are the requirements? Well, it's temperature and time, to put it on two spots. Time, meaning it needs to travel fast. So if you're flying very fast in the aircraft, the ground process should be fast too. And temperature is the relevance of the products to temperature incursions, or better said, the evasion of temperature incursions to keep the product safe for the consumption or the use with human beings. Having said this, the established air cargo community in Luxembourg provides integrated logistics services for these pharmaceuticals, but also obviously for other types of goods that are traveling by air. The community is also the entity that faced in the middle of 2020 the challenges around the COVID-19 vaccine logistics. And we would see that on the next slide, please. In 2020, and we were in the middle of the crisis mode, carriers like Emirates grounded aircraft. There was a lot of things going on in the commercial, but also in the public environment regarding this crisis. We had a lot of uncertainties, and even also some certainties that we really were not contributing to the effort at all. It was uncertain to all of the companies in the community, not only in Luxembourg, but all over the globe in air cargo transport, when the vaccines will be ready and when they will be ready to be shipped by air. It was very clear that the shipments will be done by air as long as it's not close by to the production site, and land transport will be the preferred choice of transportation. One of the things that gave us the most headaches were the specific transport requirements of the different vaccines. So we all watched the tickers of the development of the vaccines, and certainly the modern vaccines also required these ultra low temperature of -80 degrees Celsius. Now you have to understand that pharma in air cargo is well known for years, but the temperature ranges that the industry and also the market participants and community in Luxembourg, same as in the Emirates, were used to 2 to 8, 15 to 25 degrees, or frozen, which was more like -20 to -30 degrees. So those ultra low temperatures really gave us some headaches, especially if you consider that these vaccines also need to have coolant, a medium that keeps them cool, and that would be dry ice. And this is also a limiting factor in aviation, because you're not allowed to carry unlimited volumes of dry ice on board of aircraft. Speaking about volumes, what can we expect? Which volumes are there for us to have a look at? Because that would define what capacities you need, not only the capabilities, but also the capacities, because we're in the logistics business, and a bottleneck will define the overall chain's performance. And which trade lanes will be utilized. And the most pharma flying out of Luxembourg is export until now. But at the beginning, in the mid of 2020, we were not sure if the vaccines would be imported or coming inbound to Luxembourg and then being transported in transit mode additionally on. That could trigger additional inspection requirements and storage requirements, etc. So there were quite a number of uncertainties for a logistics person, quite substantial uncertainties. There were also some certainties that did not really help the case, because we knew that the development and the time to market of the vaccines would be much faster than usual, months instead of years. There would be a high public interest also on the logistics side. So failure was not an option, because this was very, very, very much in the visibility compared to what we have been doing before. But there was one certainty that really helped us, and I mentioned it before, that was that the community members, the major community members, were certified for GDP for pharmaceuticals. And it was very clear for us from the beginning that if vaccines are passing through Luxembourg Airport, the platform, that it will be according to GDP standards, because this is where we can manage the risk and can ensure that the requirements are met. Next slide, please. Thank you. So how did we set up for this teamwork and collaboration? Well, first we set up for communication and coordination, which essentially was the substance of our doing, because our purpose was to align on the planning and the preparedness of the platform. Every company did their own planning and preparedness for their area of responsibility, but same as in the relay race, it does not help if only one runner is fast. All the runners need to be fast and the handover needs to work. So we organized ourselves in the form of a task force for the community. And in the beginning, there was also a little bit of overlap between the national vaccination program logistics, but it was very clear then that the state, the government of Luxembourg, would organize this logistics beside us, even though it was clear if scarce resources would be needed, that we would collaborate and cooperate too. So we were there to enable trade and logistics for COVID-19 vaccines through Luxembourg. Once the purpose was clear, we started to share information. There was a lot of noise, but the task force members stuck their ears and eyes out, and whenever there was a nugget of information that was essential, we gathered it, we shared it, first by email. That was not very effective, and then we had a file sharing platform where we also put up our internal working documents. Then we found out that we need to do our homework and define it. And that's about the readiness of the air cargo community. Now, the first part was rather easy for me. I called up the major players and said, could I please have your recent certificate of GTB compliance? And I got that done within a day, because obviously that was the #1 hot item that you could present to potential customers, that you are complying with these standards. Having the capabilities of these players clarified, we talked about capacities, and that was the major challenge. With all the uncertainty, there was a clear tool in our hands that we wanted to use, and that was setting up a joint scenario planning. So we defined a scenario which would reflect on what is already there, meaning, for example, the pharma center, and then simply add one element additionally on top of that. Because you must understand, we were not sitting there and waiting for vaccines for COVID-19 to come along. There was a lack of air transport capacity, and there was a lot of pharma still flying for other medical conditions and for other production sites. So we set out a scenario which you would call a stress test. We said, on top of our regular operation, what would happen if we have a full freighter of COVID-19 vaccine in and a full freighter out? What would they do? And all the companies went back, did their planning, and came back with the green light and said, yes, we can do, but with 2, 3, 4, 5, then we will run into problems. Additionally, since this was the first tool, we engaged with the University of Luxembourg, and 2 students are currently working on a simulation tool for us, which we will conclude very soon, and looking forward to enable us to work through the whole process with another tool. The next step was also aligning with the authorities for active communication and coordination. This was more setting up a channel for the communication. And it was my part to communicate within the air cargo community at Luxembourg. We had a task force with 8 members, but they could not represent all the companies. So obviously we let the community know we're doing something. If you have questions, want to participate, please let us know. So we were very much an inclusive organization. Next slide, please. So what have we learned so far? Because we still have not concluded this whole exercise. And what is the way forward? Organizing ourselves, purpose-driven, and sharing information was essential for this important topic, but it will be essential in any collaborative effort. The high degree of readiness for the air cargo community in regard to the GDP standards being met over years really helped us to take stress out of this preparation, because everybody had the same language and understood that's the minimum requirement. We also learned that the market communication, that's the communication towards the potential customers or to the public, should remain with the individual stakeholders, because everybody has different approaches and styles of communicating, from social media to press releases. We made new connections. One of them, if I may say so, is Luc of B Medical Systems. So if we ever need some services and goods from him, there is now an established connection, but also other suppliers and partners have been onboarded to the community wider area. And last but not least, the cargo community has now a blueprint and so also some tools to work on collaboration in the future. I stopped because I for sure hope that we don't have it to do in this context of another pandemic. But if we ever come up with other topics, I think we are pretty well prepared to start working effectively. And when we go now to my next slide, I would like to add one more thing before I thank you for your attention. It was very clear that this whole thing worked not because of the companies cooperating, but people. And besides having all the certification and understanding the same language, the major point for me was the trust that everybody brought in. Because when you work as a team, you're not hiding information from others. Certainly there's confidential commercial information, but I was surprised, positively surprised, how quickly we shared the information and brought everybody up to speed. And that's one of my personal points where I've learned that teamwork or collaboration of the air cargo community out of Luxembourg was really useful. Having said that, I thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A session to answer some of your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dirk, for your very interesting and insightful information and exchange of experience. Let me now give the floor to Henrik Ambach. He's a Senior Vice President, Cargo Operation Worldwide at Emirates Airlines. Henrik has 30 years expertise in air logistics as an executive, initially trained as a forwarding agent, and after 15 years in airport and cargo handling services, Henrik has an extensive expertise in the airline side of the operation. Since 2014, Henrik is responsible for the global cargo operation of Emirates. Emirates is one of the world's largest passenger and cargo airlines that has successfully created a global conveyor belt facilitating world trade, utilizing Dubai unique location as the crossroad between East and West. So let me give now the floor to Henrik. Henrik, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this webinar. We are very happy that Emirates was given the opportunity to join this group. And thank you to the ambassador for the kind words about the cooperation between Emirates and Cargolux. It is indeed, and what Dirk also said, a lot of things in this industry happens as a result of good cooperation. If we go to the next slide, please. So, as mentioned before by Dirk, on the 25th of March last year, for us, passenger operations were grounded, facing the COVID situation, and as a cargo carrier, it meant that 70% of our capacity was taken away. Over a 100-day period following that, we built a new network with 100 stations using passenger aircraft to fly cargo in support of our relatively small freighter fleet. We have since operated almost 28,000 flights using passenger aircraft to move cargo. We went as far as having 17 Boeing 777 passenger aircraft where the seats have been taken out, and we load cargo on the floor instead, adding capacity. We are almost back to where we were at our current 180,000 tons of cargo a month. We used to be around 200, so you could say COVID had given us a 10% reduction in market size. More importantly, when we come to the theme of this conversation, we actually today published, so that's actually an unplanned coincidence, but we actually could today publish that we have until now moved 59 million COVID vaccine shots, or every 20th shot that has been given globally. That would then equate to a 5% market share, but in reality, it is more like a 28% market share because, for example, the inter-European distribution from Brussels is happening by truck. So with our 59 million COVID vaccine shots flown, we understand around 28% of the flown market. If you could have the next slide, please. So to get into moving vaccines is not something you decide from one day to the other. Emirates, like it was already said, have for a long time been into pharma. And yes, we did learn about GDP from the Luxembourg pre-experience. Pre-COVID and still today, we move around 1,400 tons of pharmaceuticals every week. So that is an important part of the business we already undertake. We build a network of 24 stations worldwide, where we work with local service providers to ensure that we have an end-to-end infrastructure that makes sense. Most recently in Chicago and Copenhagen, we worked with the local ground handling agents to make sure that when they were building new facilities, that they did it in a way that best possible facilitated what we need. In Dubai itself, we have 8,000 square meters of dedicated pharma storage, party 2 to 8, party 15 to 25 degree storage, allowing us to provide safe intermediate storage during the transit here. On top of that, we have 68 cool dollars, and I'll come back to them in pictures. But some people will say, well, the Middle East is warm in summer, and yes, it is warm in summer. So that is not good for pharma that needs to keep its temperature intact. So therefore, already years ago, we went in and actually were the first to develop cool dollars. So a means of moving the cargo between the aircraft and the handling facility unexposed to temperatures. These devices are now even spreading in Europe. And we know that airports like Brussels and Amsterdam have taken it on because they realize that even a European summer can be devastating to pharmaceuticals if they have not been equipped with the correct passive packing. If we could skip one slide, please. So the door-to-door vaccine distribution is not much different from other kinds of distribution. You have the collection from the manufacturer. There's obviously some more quality controls, and you have to be a little bit more careful with keeping the temperature chain intact. I'll come back to that later. You fly it on an aircraft and you hope to make sure that the captain is doing the settings correctly for the temperature and the holes of the aircraft. It arrives at the hub, in our case here in Dubai, where you have the necessary intermediate storage facility. We may, for some kind of packaging, need to either recharge electrical containers or replenish dry ice if dry ice has been used as a primary cooling method. What we do during the transit in Dubai. And then it goes onwards by another flight to the destination, and eventually, obviously, the important final mile, either to the hospital or the Ministry of Health facility that will take care of the vaccine. So pretty straightforward it looks. And if we click one, and take one next slide, please. When you talk pharma transport, it looks simple, and it is not overly complicated, but it's all about facilities and process discipline. That you're able to protect the cool chain end to end, so that you have focus on handover points. The cool truck that comes with the cargo, that it actually have rubber sealing around it when it docks and you open the truck. So the truck may be 15 to 25 degrees inside, the area it comes into has the same temperature. So you're not exposing the commodities to changing temperatures during transport. We have an issue in this industry with prevention of contamination. We transport many kinds of goods, but of course, pharmaceuticals are sensitive. So you want, as also described by the GDP regulations and certification, to keep this segregated. You can do segregation in many ways. We have seen airports where they just do a dotted line on the warehouse floor and call that segregation. We believe, like the case of Lux Airport or Lux Air Handling, that that's not enough. You need actually to build some concrete walls and make sure that you have dedicated and segregated facilities to ensure that cross-contamination cannot take place. When we look at the process itself, a major concern, and it has recently also appeared now in the media around COVID vaccines, is the whole counterfeit medicine industry. Estimates is out that it's a $4.4 billion a year industry to produce fake medicine. People die of fake medicine every day somewhere in the world. So as part of what we do, transport of medicines, is important that the supply chain is ensured that it's difficult, or hopefully impossible, to interject things that should not be transported. And finally, of course, it's all about capacity and reach. We chose as airline from the beginning to make, you can say pharma, or not from the beginning, for some years ago, to make pharma a key priority for us, utilizing our network. And if we do one click and take the next slide, we have, of course, the benefit that Dubai is extremely centrally located if you look at east to west. Within a 3-hour flying radius, we have access to 2 billion people, the Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, and large parts of Africa, which is what we all consider our home market. And those are then the area that we primarily focus on when we talk medicine and at the moment, vaccine distribution. If you click one more, or take the next slide. Doing the transport, you use not just the packaging, and I'm just about stepping into Luc's next presentation when we talk about the packaging. But if I look at the packaging from an airline perspective, well, then we are talking containers, as you can see it here. That is either, you can say, electric or using dry ice. And one of the things we saw with COVID is the capability of us humans. Then when we have to, we really can. Normally things look very difficult. There's a lot of red tape. We have never done it like this. We can't do that. And one of the simple things we found out that, of course, aircraft have limitations in how much dry ice they are allowed to uplift. And that is important because dry ice deplete and releases CO2. At the end, there's no oxygen left. Not so good for the passengers and the crew. But we also found out as an industry that the current rules for dry ice is 35 to 40 years old. And the aircraft construction technology in those days were obviously different than today. So high-speed effort with EASA in Europe and the FAA of America, we could suddenly, for a 777 passenger aircraft, triple the amount of dry ice we could move. For the 777 freighter, double it, allowing us to move much more medicine, COVID vaccines, in one flight. So an interesting case where you can say you set in place legislation, you leave it for many years, and because nobody needs to touch it, it is not touched until something happens. And here I think we can also thank governments for having been quite facilitative. So what I've tried to explain is a little bit about our approach to pharma transport. I, as usual for webinars, look very much forward to the Q&A sessions and the good discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henrik, for your presentation. Before giving the floor to our last speaker, I would like to remind you that there will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Please don't hesitate to send me through chats your questions. So now I would like to introduce you Luc Provost. He's the CEO of P Medical. P Medical Systems is a Luxembourg-based company manufacturing vaccines cold chain solutions since more than 40 years. P Medical Systems has been leading the vaccine cold chain market thanks to many innovations. And with us today, we have Luc Provost, CEO of P Medical Systems, who has been with the company for more than 21 years. And he will give us some insights on their success stories. Luc, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for this kind introduction, and welcome to all of you to this interesting webinar so far. If we can go to the next slide, please. So actually, B Medical Systems has been into this business for more than 40 years, and we used to be the medical division of Electrolux in the 70 years, when actually the first vaccines came to the market, late 70s, and where WHO and UNICEF wanted to deploy them globally and there was absolutely no existing solution to do so. And that's when actually Electrolux Medical Systems entered the game to bring solutions which would allow vaccines which were manufactured in the US, in Europe, to go to very remote locations and to arrive safely to the people who needed them. Over the years, we have developed many different solutions, many different innovations. And today we do this under the B Medical brand, which is totally dedicated to medical solutions for transportation and storage of temperature sensitive medicines and goods. Next slide, please. So actually, it is not only a question of providing good products and good solutions. It is also once that the products arrive at destination, be it the inbound airports, to really then be developed and supplied to the populations deep down into the geographical regions of a country. And that you can only do also with local support, local teams that are capable of doing so. And B Medical today covers more than 130 countries worldwide. And we have more than 400,000 products which are deployed today in these different countries in very different areas around the world. Our customers are typically organizations like UNICEF, Gavi, the World Health Organization, the Red Cross, Médecins Sans Frontières, and many ministries of health across the world. Next slide, please. We have more than 100 solutions, and I really would like to talk about solutions and not about products. And this is really across 3 different segments. We have it in the vaccine cold chain, the medical refrigeration, which you will typically find in hospitals, clinics, laboratories, and then also blood management solutions, which actually gave us a very good experience in terms of temperature control, because the temperature control in blood transfusion is even more severe than in pharmaceuticals. And that really gave us a very good understanding of what are the needs for the different markets and being able to transfer innovations and technologies from one sector to the other sector. Next slide, please. So here for the vaccine cold chain, what we have done is really answered the different governments to find solutions, because many governments came to us knocking on our door and asking, what do I need as a cold chain? What should I invest in for the vaccines that are going to come to my country? Nobody knew which temperature profile was going to arrive, in which quantities, at what time. And so this was a very challenging situation for many governments. And I think that's where B Medical as a company and as a solution provider was very, I would say, well positioned. Because if you listen to Henrik and to Dirk, we're talking about GDP, we're talking about training, we're talking about discipline, dry ice supply, power supply. Well, B Medical has really put into the market solutions which face all of these, I would say, difficult situations where there is no power supply, where there is no dry ice, where there is no training, where there is no education of the people who have to manage it. And we build a solution which is so robust that you can safely transport products in very harsh conditions. We have, for example, solar refrigerators, which absolutely work without any battery and which can have temperature maintenance for over a month. So, for example, in countries like Indonesia, where you have tropical conditions, but also rainy seasons, you could maintain the temperature of your vaccines without any solar energy during 1 month, and that perfectly safely according to WHO certification and standards. We have refrigerators and freezers which are capable of taking any dirty power. If you look at countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, where you have powers in supply which can go up to 300 volts or down to 90 volts, we have robust electronics and robust electronic equipment which is capable of managing dirty power and without damaging neither the product, the refrigerator or the freezer, neither the vaccines that are stored inside. And then the vaccine transport boxes, we have unique solutions which are capable of transporting any type, any profile of vaccine from -80, which is today, everybody knows the Pfizer vaccine requesting the minus 80 temperatures. But this is not a newcomer for B Medical. B Medical has already managed these type of situations with the Ebola vaccine. Nobody or few people talk about the Ebola vaccine, but the Ebola vaccine has exactly the same need as the Pfizer vaccine, which is a minus 80 environment. And then what we have recently developed is the Ultra 16, I would say the Ultra refrigerator, which can keep 1 month the temperature safe. We have now developed it also as a passive solution, because as Henrik mentioned, the quantity of dry ice being limited on a flight, you would want to increase the quantity of vaccines that you can transport, and that you can do by increasing the autonomy of your refrigerator or freezer or passive box, and that will allow you to transport more vaccines and less dry ice. Next slide, please. Also, what is very, very important, and even more so today, is the real-time remote temperature monitoring. We have today more than 40,000 refrigerators across the world, and that goes from the desert of the Chad or to the forest of the Amazon in Brazil, in very, very remote, difficult to reach areas. We have a complete traceability system on Google Maps, and you can, all the green dots that you see on the center picture in the middle are all refrigerators which are installed across the different continents. And you can click on every single of these dots, and then you will have the screen that you see on the top side, where it will identify the type of refrigerator it is, what is the current temperature inside, what is the ambient temperature, and how is the unit working. Is it in an alarm situation? Is it in a regular situation? And when it is in an alarm situation, it will send an SMS or an email to the person who can intervene at that point of time. So we have a remote temperature monitoring, which has made our vaccination campaigns a lot more robust than what they used to be. Also, many of our customers are ministries of health, and these ministries don't have endless means to service a cold chain in a country. But thanks to this remote temperature monitoring, with a team of 5-10 engineers or technicians, you can service an entire country because you know exactly where they are needed. And on top of that, if the technician has a week time or a month time without any risk to get to the location, which very often is remote, it is absolutely not a problem with the type of equipment that we provide to the different ministries. And this is, again, a development that was made in Luxembourg by Luxembourg engineers working here in our company. And today we have more than 100 patents covering our innovations, which really make life easy for governments and for customers. Next slide, please. Our contribution around the world in the COVID times has been really on all continents. Here is just a few examples of countries where we have supplied large-scale projects, be it -80 freezers, be it -20 +4 refrigerators, be it passive boxes, be it temperature remote monitoring for their cold rooms. In some cases, like if you look at Costa Rica, we even had to supply with military helicopters because there was no other way to access the remote locations where the vaccines had to be distributed to the populations. So we are really equipped and trained and organized in such a way that we can get the vaccines anywhere in the world, even in the most remote locations and in whichever conditions that you will find locally in terms of energy supply. Next slide, please. So we offer a very broad portfolio of solutions. And again, I insist on the solutions and not on the products. And one of the questions that we had from many governments is, which product should I invest in? What solution should I put into place? Do I have a -80 freezer now, but maybe in 2 months' time, I will have to store the Moderna vaccine at -20. So what can I do? And so what B Medical has done is we have developed equipment which is capable of storing different profiles of vaccines. If you look at our -80 freezer, we are one of the 2 brands in the world who are capable of storing in a -80 freezer, not only the -80 vaccines, but also the -20 vaccines. So with the same unit, you can store -80 or -20. And we did the same with the -20 and the +4 freezer refrigerator. The 3000 AC is a unit which you can put as -20 or at +4, the exactly same unit. So you can have in January, February, March, for example, arrival of Pfizer vaccines, and then in April, May, June, arrival of Moderna. You can manage the same vaccines in the same unit. Sorry, it was the -20 +4. And we have across all products, remote temperature monitoring. This is very, very important because at all times, in real time, you can see how your cold chain is doing across the country. So from a central level, and this is important today because everybody is managing today crisis situations. Crisis situations meaning that there's a lot of vaccines which are located in a single location with a higher value. In one single ultra-low freezer, you can have up to 7 million euros of value of vaccines. And of course, you want to make sure that these vaccines are stored safely, not only for their value, monetary value, but also for their benefit to the population and the health of the population. Next, please. Also, what we have done is we have offered and developed new products, again, for COVID situations, which are unique. For example, our ultra-low freezer, which is the -80 freezer, is the only one in the world which is capable of maintaining and providing -80 environments in tropical conditions. Henrik was talking about having, for example, cooled passageways between the warehouses and the planes to be able to transport the pharmaceuticals in good conditions. Our equipment is capable to provide that quality of cooling even in tropical conditions. And so today, B Medical is the only company in the world who can provide -80 freezers that you can install anywhere in the world, even in non-air conditioned environments. It will work perfectly fine. The TCW 3000 AC, as I mentioned, can go from -20 to +4. But also the innovation and the attractiveness of our solutions have also attracted big companies like Toyota to team up with B Medical. As we have unique, really robust products, Toyota has signed an exclusivity contract with B Medical to develop a vehicle which has an autonomy of 2,000 kilometers with one single fuel tank and to distribute vaccines in very remote areas. The RTMD, which we have adapted to also the -80 freezer and not only to the existing passive boxes and the refrigerators. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this is an example where, again, we have modified existing solutions to give an answer to a need that is existing. And many logistical, I would say, distances are challenging. And we have provided now a passive container, which is capable of maintaining with the dry ice inside a temperature below -70 degrees for 21 days or -60 for 24 days at tropical temperature 43 degrees, which you have nowhere in the world, day and night, 43 degrees. Usually at night it's cooler and during the day it's hotter. And this unit will allow from the manufacturer to very remote locations without adding dry ice or without having to move the primary packaging from one to the other to provide a robust solution from the manufacturer all the way to the location where it is needed. And so this is really something which is very interesting, again, because it limits the need for dry ice, but it also gives you enough security to supply excellent conditions at extreme temperature conditions, -80. Next slide, please. Also, I would like to mention that I think, like everybody else in this COVID environment, our activity has increased incredibly. Compared to last year, we have produced more and supplied more than 350% increase versus last year, which is a very challenging situation. And also last year, Prime Minister Bettel and Prime Minister Moody had a virtual summit where actually the benefit of B Medical products was clearly identified. And we are now setting up a factory in India to increase again our capacity. That's actually the top picture. You can see already our building, which is being set up in India in the port of Mundra. And on the bottom side, you can see that also thanks to the Luxembourg government and the EU grant aids, we are also doubling our capacity here in Luxembourg, again, to be able to provide more products more rapidly to the markets where they are needed, extremely in urgent times as it is today. That was it from my side, and I'm looking forward to your questions and I hope to answer them in the next session. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Luc, for your very insightful presentation. We still have a couple of minutes, so I would suggest to open the floor for question and answers to our experts. First questions. Henrik, you mentioned how quick were some association administration in order to reduce red tape, in order to update dry ice regulation. Were there also other bottlenecks that similarly association administrations managed to reduce red tape in order to allow the flows to move much quicker?
Yes, there were several. To make a simple one, when we wanted to take out the seats from our 777s and load cargo on the normal, where people normally sit, that is a huge undertaking where you first need a so-called supplemental type certificate issued by EASA. Then you need your local civil aviation authority to approve that. You need the countries you want to fly to approve of your own CAA's approval plus the EASA STC. You need to have discussions with the engineering department about floor load limitations. You need to discuss with your civil aviation and your flight safety department about fire prevention measures and so forth. But in this case, it took us 2.5 months, which for anybody who normally deals with regulation would know that that's no time. From we got the idea that we want to use aircraft like this until it was possible. So both the civil aviation authorities of our own country and the countries fly to, as well as in our case, EASA, was very forthcoming. Of course, playing the right balance between flight safety, because that's what they are supposed to do. So that we suspend gravity every time we take off. But a clear case of where the authorities, you can say, pulled all stops, made sure they focused on safety, but furthered what was in general interest, that capacity was made available for cargo transport.
Thank you, Henrik. Maybe questions to Dirk. Dirk, we've seen how important it is to have a good cooperation between all the supply chain actors within the vaccine supply chain. Do you see some lessons learned from your experience that could be implemented also to other verticals in the air cargo industry?
Yes, certainly. I think it has been our work cut out for years to expedite the process on the ground. The aircraft are flying rather fast, but if you look at the whole supply chain, it on average takes something like, and then there are many deviations, but 6 days from the start of the journey until the end. And expediting this ground process is not only that the people and the machines involved work faster, but that the coordination is done before the goods arrive. The industry has a long history of trying to get rid of paper, much slower than the passenger side of our business, but we are underway here, and enabling the planning and having the data or the information before the goods arrive will certainly give us a possibility to expedite the ground process even further, not only in Luxembourg, but in the whole industry, and make it more visible. The visibility for pharmaceuticals is a given. But I think the visibility will not stop there. We are getting used to or have to get used to that we will see that with all kinds of goods, having a track and trace and visibility perspective worldwide.
Thank you, Dirk. Time is running. Last questions maybe to Luc Provost. Logistics is to have the right product at the right moment, in the right quantity, at the right location. I think we've seen that you have the right product at the right moment. However, you had to deal with an exponential demand of your product. How did you manage to scale up your production? What were the challenge in order to do so? Could you share with us a bit your experience on that?
Yes, thank you for the question, Daniel. And actually, due to the fact that B Medical is working very often on national programs of immunization, but then I would say the standard immunization, we are used to producing very large quantities in very short periods of time. And our production technology, which is a special technology which is called robotic rotomolding, allows to increase factory output on a very short period of time. And so I would say, luckily, the technology that we use in our manufacturing is adapted to increase capacity rapidly. What we were missing a lot was, of course, space, people, and that was very challenging to find the people that we needed to train. Today, I would say we have increased more than 35% our workforce here in Luxembourg to cope with the demand. But I think one of the challenges today is also the supply chain of raw material, of components. We all hear about the electronic components, which is a nightmare worldwide. And very often we have set up A supplier, B supplier, C supplier, and even A, B, C is not enough. So it is challenging times.
Luc, thank you very much for your answer. I think time is running, so before concluding, last comment. You've seen on this last slide all the contact details of our speakers and experts. So for the one of you who didn't have chance to get an answer to the questions, don't hesitate to contact the expert directly. You see there is their email contact, and they will for sure give you an answer to your questions. So I think this was it for me now. Let me thank all the speakers of the webinar today. Thanks also again the Luxembourg Trade Investment Office Abu Dhabi, as well as the Benelux Business Council for organizing this webinar. So thank you, stay safe, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.